So with Anthem soon entering its last month before release, I know a lot of you guys are eagerly awaiting to play the game and doing test runs of all of the Javelins before deciding on your mains. Since they all play out so differently from one another, having different combat styles and powers, picking one up might not be such an easy task as it might seem. You might be tempted now to go for a Colossus for example, or a Storm, but you would be surprised how difficult that decision can be once you get to play with all of them, as they all feel powerful in their very own unique ways. In an attempt to help you guys make a general impression of all of the Javelins, in today's video I'm going to go over all of the different playstyles they have, as well as the different ways they all be contributing on the battlefield. I'm not going to go over a full breakdown of all of the Javelin skills though, as that would exceed the purpose of this video, but I will make separate videos on that if you guys want me to. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, a like would be super appreciated, and let's get to it. Now the Ranger has become quite popular in the last few days thanks to its versatility and the wide range of weaponry and skill types it has access to. If at any point you feel undecided about which Javelin you want to pick, then the Ranger will most probably be your best bet. Think of it as the soldier type that can do more than just one thing. It has access to most weapons in the game, its skill set is very diverse and lets you control the battlefield very well thanks to its access to a wide range of crowd control abilities. Its defenses are also good, having a good amount of HP and a shield on top of it, and only being surpassed by the Colossus in this department. Finally, it also has some very good mobility despite packing so many tools into one package. It can fly fast and for quite extended periods of time, it can dodge with ease both on the ground and while in air, and its mobility is generally very good, only being bested by the Interceptor, who pretty much excels in this kind of stuff. The Ranger's arsenal can give you access to all status effects in the game, with only the Storm being more effective in this department. So you'll be able to crowd control the enemies by freezing them with frost grenades, setting them on fire with inferno grenades, poisoning them with the venom darts, and electrifying them with the shock maze. This will also make your targets to be further primed for detonations, which you can either detonate yourself with using other detonator abilities you have, or by letting your other party members taking care of that. Furthermore, you can specialize yourself to excel either in AoE damage or single target damage, as your arsenal gives you access to both of these types of attacks. If you're finding yourself fighting against big groups of enemies, then you can make a loadout that favors massive AoE damage, such as for example by using frag grenades or blast missiles. Likewise, if you're going against big single target enemies, then you can opt for attacks that excel in single target attacks like the energy pulse or the spark beam. The Ranger also has some very good party support abilities, which are the bulwark point and the muster point. Will let you choose to either buff up your entire party's weapon damage or put down a force field that deflects incoming projectiles. In a sense, it kind of borrows something from all of the Javelins, and while it does not excel in any of those areas as other Javelins do, the fact that it's so versatile is where its strength and usefulness comes from. But moving on, we have the Colossus, the true tank type class of Anthem, and by far the largest of them all. Unlike all of the other Javelins out there, the Colossus doesn't use a force shield, but rather takes advantage of its massive 7-section health bar and its physical shield that gives him unparalleled levels of survivability. Everything about the Colossus screams heavy. The way it moves has a lot of weight to it in a sense, which also comes from the fact that it's the least agile of the 4 Javelins. The same goes with flying, as the Colossus is the Javelin that can stay the least amount of time in the air, and it can quickly overheat because of its massive size. Instead of a dodge, you'll be using a deployable physical shield, as I've said, which blocks most if not all of the frontal damage, but it can break and it is on a cooldown, though a rather short one, as I might add. You can also use it while flying, by the way. You can use the shield when flying if you want to block incoming damage or make way for your party to escape. While using the shield, you won't be able to use but very few of the abilities, but luckily enough you can use the shield itself as a weapon, for example, for both hitting enemies as well as pushing them out of the way. I believe that you can also use the mortar attacks, as it's kinda an attack that comes from the back of your Javelin, and you can even use your taunt ability behind the shield. As I've said in the beginning beginning of the video, only the Colossus has access to the big weaponry such as grenade launchers, miniguns, flamethrowers and so on, so at no point will you feel like not doing enough damage. In most online games out there, the tank generally excels in defenses, but most often than not sacrifices a lot of the damage for that. Not the Colossus though, as it still packs a huge amount of firepower under all of that metal, most notably from its mortar attacks as well as its various cannons. Much like how you would expect from a tank class, it can also taunt enemies in an area, forcing them to attack the Colossus and avoid the party members to get hit by potentially life-threatening attacks. Otherwise, this can also be swapped out for a deflector pulse, and this one gives nearby allies a damage resistant buff, but personally I think the taunt is much better thematically speaking. Oh, and let's not forget about the ultimate, which is one siege cannon. It's by far one of the most destructively impressive ability in the game. It does a huge explosion and you can use it roughly 2 or 3 times depending on how good you are, but as I've said, if you want to go for a Hulk buster in your party, this is your way to go. The Colossus will definitely fit that role. The third Javelin, which I'll go over, is obviously the Interceptor. I've also mentioned this in a previous video I made, but the Interceptor is your assassin type class that is very agile, uses very fast attacks, and has some very big damage potential. Because of its small frame, the Interceptor can quickly move from one enemy to another, both in terms of flying and running. In fact, you are encouraged to do as much movement as possible, as this will also increase your shield regeneration rate. The starting HP is about the same as the Ranger, but unlike the Ranger, you will be staying in melee range for much longer periods of time, which can also put you at serious trouble if you're not quick enough to dodge attacks or disengage the enemy when low on health, so you'll generally be under much more danger compared to other Javelins. Luckily enough, your fast regenerating shields and the fact that you have the highest amount of dodges and dashes of all of the Javelins will let you pull that one off with ease. As you can obviously see from the footage, the Interceptor plays vastly different from all of the other Javelins thanks to its double-bladed daggers, and these pretty much let you do a continuous flurry of slashes with no interruption whatsoever. It is also the only Javelin that can empower itself with a debuff aura to spread it to other enemies, so its combat style is definitely very unique and it promotes proximity. Out of all of the Javelins so far, this one is the one that plays the closest to Warframe, while the rest of them are a combination between the Division and Destiny to a certain extent. If you were to make a comparison in terms of playstyle, the Interceptor would be on the opposing end of the spectrum compared to the Colossus. Whereas the Colossus moves heavily and deals massive fire explosions, the Interceptor acts with extreme precision and finesse, almost like a ninja/assassin. Some of its attacks even evoke these themes, such as for example the star/shuriken projectiles it's able to throw at enemies from long ranges, but there's also other abilities in its arsenal that can provide certain status effects like acid or ice for example, or even gap closers like the spark dash. In the end, the Interceptor is a high skill class that is very rewarding in the hands of those who master it, as well as a lot of fun thanks to its amazing agility. Nonetheless, the final Javelin we have is obviously the Storm, which is pretty much comparable to mage classes from other RPGs. The Storm itself uses powerful technology known as seals to boost the kinetic powers of the lancers inside of it. This is why the Javelin is able to float so effortlessly above the ground and cast devastating elemental attacks from afar. While it indeed can use most weapon types out there, just like all of the other previous Javelins, it mostly relies on its high damage spells that are excellent at both providing status effects on the enemies as well as priming them and detonating them for huge damage bonuses. Out of all of the status effects in the game, the Storm has access to fire, ice and electricity, and most of its abilities deliver these status effects in one way or another, like for example the frost shards, which are able to freeze the enemies, and the lightning strike, which can detonate that. The Storm is the second slowest Javelin out of all of the 4 in the game after the Colossus, and unlike any of the previous Javelins, it's the only one that stays up in the air for the longest amount of time thanks to its Kinetic Shield. The Kinetic Shield is basically that bluish sphere you can see around its body at all times, and it also protects him against all types of damage. Unfortunately, the Storm's HP pool is one of the smallest in the game, but it compensates for that by typically staying away from the enemies, crowd controlling them, and by relying on its Kinetic Shield. Its dodge is a fade/teleport. Its playstyle is unique in the sense that it's the only one able to spam its spells, provide status effects around the clock. Its support abilities can either provide cooldown reductions for the entire party, including itself, or projectile deflecting walls. And its ultimate is probably one of the most spectacular ones in the game, as he's able to cast all of the elements in a massive area, providing a huge range of status effects and detonations, and that is kinda everything there is to it. To sum it all up, the Colossus is the massive tank, the Ranger is the good all-around soldier, the Interceptor is the dual-wielding assassin, and finally the Storm is the spell-casting mage, and that is pretty much all you need to know. They all feature unique playstyles and interesting abilities, which is why I agree that choosing one to main can be quite hard. But that's all we have for now, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then make sure to give a thumbs up on this video, as well as pressing that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one. So peace.